Hi, it's Danielle. Welcome to my perfume journal where I document my love of perfume. I've had a few requests for this video, and since I just did a recent big declutter from my shelves, I thought it would be a good time to make a perfume collection video. I have never done one before, and I actually think it's going to be fun for me to go through my entire collection, hopefully fun for you too. I am a chronic overthinker, so it took me a little while to decide what I would include as part of my collection. Like, should I include decants, travels, minis? Don't worry, we're not going to include samples. And then how should I organize this? Should I do it by brand, by scent family? All of these incredibly unimportant things in the grand scheme of life, but things I am pretty happy to think about as a temporary distraction from the grand scheme of life from time to time. So in the end, I decided that my collection is essentially made up of anything that is not a sample that I keep in my perfume cabinet and I pull out and wear. So that includes minis, travels, decants, and bottles. And then to present them all, I'm going to go in chronological order, so from the earliest to the most recent release year. I thought that might be kind of fun. And of course, in pure nerd fashion, I have a spreadsheet of all of my perfumes. So this was an easy task, a quick column sort. And one of the things I noticed in preparing for this video is that my collection actually reflects the increase in releases that we've seen over the decades, at least since I started being interested in perfume, which was way back in the 70s. Just some nerd stats. In my collection, I have 2 perfumes that were originally released pre-1970, 9 perfumes from the 70s, 14 perfumes released in the 80s, 12 from the 90s, and then I have 34 from the 2000s, 70 perfumes that have been released since 2010, and 55 perfumes released since 2020, and this decade isn't even over yet. That really surprised me. I didn't think I had that many perfumes that were so recently released. So already this has been an interesting exercise for a perfume enthusiast like me. Okay, so I'm gonna start recording and I'll keep going until I either get tired, run out of space in my phone memory, or lose my voice. I will also probably need to break this up into more than one video. So here we go, my entire perfume collection as of March 2026. So starting out with the 2 pre-1970 perfumes in my collection, on the left is Heliotrope Blanc from LT Pavere. This perfume came out in 1850, and the LT Pavere brand has been purchased, is making a revival, and now all of their signature perfumes are available in a reformulated eau de parfum concentration. But this version in the lotion concentration, which is kind of close to an eau de cologne, this is a very powdery, almondy, vanillic heliotrope with some accents of jasmine and ylang ylang, giving it a very floral quality, beautiful powdery floral. Then on the right is the classic Melograno from the oldest perfume house in Italy, Santa Maria Novella. This particular scent was released in 1965. Melograno means pomegranate, but this doesn't smell like pomegranates to me. This smells like a spicy, very, very soapy floral with a musky, mossy base. Beautiful. Kicking off the 1970s, first up we have Halston by Halston that was released in 1974, and it was created by Bernard Chant for the designer Halston. And then the iconic bottle design was created by Elsa Peretti, who was one of Halston's friends and muses, and actually went on to become a jewelry designer for Tiffany's. So Halston was my mom's signature scent in the 1970s, and along with Aramis that my dad wore, Youth Dew that my grandmother wore, and Old Spice that my grandfather wore. Those 4 perfumes are the reason for all of this. So Halston is well known to be the scent that permeated the walls of Studio 54 in the 1970s. Everyone was wearing Halston. It is the most beautiful peachy and green floral chypre with an ambery, mossy, woody base. There's a spicy carnation to this. There's definitely a buttery orris. There's a classic rose jasmine combination in here. What set this apart from other green floral chypres of the 70s is that beautiful peach note at the top and then the sandalwood in the base. It's a classic. Next from 1974 is Love's Baby Soft. This was my very first perfume ever of my own. This opens green and citrusy and happy, and then it has that very classic powdery profile of lily of the valley, rose, jasmine, and so it dries down into a powdery floral with just a hint of sweetness. Beautiful first perfume, still in production today. Then from 1976, we have what I think is a really underrated perfume from the 1970s. This is Blazer from Anne Klein. So essentially, this is another green woody floral. Green woody florals and green floral chypres were very popular in the 1970s, but just like gourmands of today, they all have their own little spin on the gourmand category. All of these green woody florals or green floral chypres had their own spin, and Blazer's spin was aromatics. There's a little bit of lavender here, there's some juniper, there's some mint. This perfume has marigold and geranium that gives that green floralcy to it. And then instead of having like a mossy woody base, this perfume leans more into patchouli in the base. This perfume really represents what I saw growing up as the rise of the strong and powerful woman. Okay, next from 1977, we have the gorgeous Opium from YSL. There has never been anything like Opium, and I think there will never be anything like Opium. So Opium is all about spice, amber, and resins. There's clove, there's cinnamon, there's carnation, there's patchouli, there's rose, there's myrrh, there's frankincense. It's mysterious, it's opulent. And this is actually my own vintage bottle from the 1980s, and I am very sparingly spraying what is left of this vintage bottle. Although vintage bottles of Opium are not that difficult to find, and because it's essentially an amber perfume, it does hold up over time. And in my experience, it's rare to find a bottle of Opium that has gone off. Oh, by the way, I forgot to get these out. My mom found these when she was going through everything in her basement recently. This probably came in a gift set with the Opium bottle that I have. This is a little dusting powder and body moisturizer, and I love this vintage Opium packaging. So even though I won't be using these, I'm excited that I still have them. And from 1978, we have the Eau de Toilette of Oscar from Oscar de la Renta. This is another spicy floral chypre, but this perfume leans a little bit more powdery than some of its counterparts. There are some aromatic qualities to this from some rosemary. I think there's some basil in here. There's definitely carnation. And then there's classic florals like jasmine, ylang ylang, tuberose, rose. There's gardenia in this that peeks out from time to time. This definitely has some green qualities to it. And it all dries down into a beautiful powdery woody base. I think this is a really classic, elegant perfume. So the rest of my perfumes from the 1970s are all these little minis. First, from 1978, we have Anais Anais from Cacharel. This is a beautiful, fresh green, powdery floral. It feels very, very pastel. It's hyacinth and lily of the valley. There's iris and rose, honeysuckle. There's definitely galbanum and blackcurrant in this that give it like a fruity green fresh quality. And this is what would have been a popular teenage girl perfume in the late 70s and early 80s. In the same way that teenage girls all love the Sol de Janeiro body mists. This is what we loved in the 80s, powdery, sharp white florals. So next from 1978, by Bernard Chant, also the perfumer behind Halston, is the classic Lauren from Ralph Lauren. This is one of my unicorn perfumes that I hope one day I will find at a price that will not require me to take out a second mortgage. This is a fresh, green, fruity floral with a nice, soft, woody base. This perfume has a little touch of pineapple in it, which gives it the fruitiness. There's lilac in this perfume with some violet, rose, and jasmine. There's definitely lily of the valley, giving it its fresh quality. This perfume is the epitome of the preppy style that was so popular in the 80s. And of all the perfumes that I wore in the 80s, this is in my top 3. Many tears were shed when they discontinued this perfume. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from Lauren, this is Majesty Noir from Lancôme. And this perfume does indeed smell like some kind of dark magic. It is amazing. This is another very green, spicy floral chypre, but I think what makes this one a little bit different is there's an animalic earthiness to it, kind of like you've been out in the forest casting spells in the middle of the night. And finally, one of the most underrated perfumes from the 1970s. This also came out in 1978. This is Silences from Giacomo. This is a very, very bitter green floral chypre. Like the mossiness in this perfume doesn't have the same kind of soft mossiness that you get from oak moss. This is like a sharp green mossy kind of a scent. Lots and lots and lots of galbanum in this. Even the florals in this feel sort of like moody and angry. This is not a happy green floral chypre. This is very dark and bitter. So let's kick off the 1980s with one of the most 1980s perfumes ever made. That's Giorgio from Giorgio Beverly Hills. This is a very bombastic, sweet, fruity floral. The star of the show in Giorgio is this big, buttery tuberose. There's ylang ylang, gardenia, jasmine, rose. There's a definitive stone fruit quality to this with a whole big bunch of vanilla and musk. Giorgio smells like a whole bottle of sunshine. It smells like liquid Rodeo Drive in the 80s. It is most definitely big shoulder pads, gold lame, Crystal Carrington, Alexis Colby, Dynasty vibes. No one had ever smelled anything like it. It was beautiful back then, and it still is. And then from 1982, my favorite perfume of all time, forever and ever, Niki de Saint Phalle by Niki de Saint Phalle. She was a French artist. This is the one and only perfume she ever created. This definitely has the feel of the green floral chypre of the 1970s. There's some mint in this, though, that gives it a brightness. There's a little bit of peach that gives it some fruitiness. There's some orris in here that gives it a beautiful butteriness. But to me, the most amazing thing about this perfume is the creamy sandalwood base. It adds a sweetness to the composition that completely balances out the green mossiness of chypres of this time. And I just think this is one of the most special, unique perfumes ever made. And it will always and forever be my number one. And now I'm going to pull this off of the tray and go put it back in its little house. Be right back. Well, if this little grouping doesn't scream the 80s, I don't know what does. So from 1984, we have Paloma Picasso by Paloma Picasso. This is yet another spicy, woody floral chypre from the decade. But if I had to pick out the thing that makes this different from other spicy, woody floral chypres of the decade, it's the animalic quality that you get from the honey note in this. So this perfume was iconic for its ad campaign that featured Paloma Picasso herself, the daughter of artist Pablo Picasso. She has like very pale skin, very dark eye makeup, a super striking red lip, and then this very sharp, severe black bob. And she's like holding her face in her hands with a pair of red gloves. It's extremely striking, and it really encapsulates what this perfume smells like. Then we have the classic Coco from Chanel that came out in 1984, was created by Jacques Polge. This is just a beautiful, spicy, powdery, woody, ambery floral. There's cinnamon, there's rose, iris, jasmine. There's a beautiful balsamic quality to this from the benzoin. There's a resinous quality to this. There's a sweetness from the honey. It's got powdery tonka bean in the base. It's a little bit animalic. This is very plush, luxurious, extravagant, rich kind of a perfume. Next, we have Calvin Klein's Obsession from 1985, created by Jean Guichard. This, along with Opium, is to me one of the best amber perfumes ever made. This is all about the blend of beautiful spices, beautiful woods, and vanilla, where Cocoa feels a little bit more sumptuous. I feel like Obsession is just as beautiful, but more approachable. It's so lush. And also created by Jean Guichard from 1985, we have Poison from Dior. This, along with Giorgio, is probably the most notorious, legendary, iconic perfumes from the decade. This was rumored to be so offensive to people that they were thrown out of restaurants if they were wearing it. And yet here we are 41 years later, and it is still in production and it is still going strong. This is the most gorgeous, honeyed, plummy tuberose with spices and resins and amber and musk and woods and vanilla. It is spicy, sweet, floral, powdery, fruity, ambery. It is dark, it is mysterious, it is gothic, it is dusty, it is vintage. It is poison. Weird to say, but I love to wear this one to bed. It is so intoxicating that it pretty much puts me in a trance. It was one of my signature perfumes in the 1980s, and it is one of my forever perfume loves. From 1986, we have the original Bijan in this gorgeous abstract engagement ring style bottle. This is a stunning honeyed yellow floral with narcissus, there's ylang ylang, orange blossom, rose. Of course, there's that mossy woody base, a little tiny bit of spice. And I don't even know how you describe perfumes like this. Like if I had to categorize Bijan, I would put it in with perfumes like Obsession, Cocoa, maybe even Shalimar. It's just got that really rich, opulent, thick, ambery floral quality to it. It's beautiful. And then from 1986, we have the original Liz Claiborne. This is a green floral chypre. At the time, this would have been considered like a fresh perfume, but by today's standards, this doesn't really smell fresh to me at all. It really does smell like a green floral chypre, but there is a brightness here that's more 80s and less 70s. This has pineapple, there's some marigold in here. I think marigold is actually the most beautiful note. It gives the perfume that like sort of spicy green quality that I love. There's a definitive mossiness in the base. And this is one of those perfumes that I think if you grew up in the 80s and somebody handed you a blotter and didn't tell you what it was, you would immediately be able to pick out that this was the Liz Claiborne perfume. Everyone wore this in high school. This was probably the most popular perfume among high school girls in the mid 1980s. It came in these primary color bottles. The blue bottle that I have is a vintage. The red is the current formulation. It still smells great. The only real difference I perceive is the real oak moss versus the synthetic oak moss, but still the Claiborne we all knew and loved. And going back to our spicy floral chypre, this is the original Fendi from 1987. This is the Eau de Toilette. This is a vintage bottle. So this perfume has a ton of carnation, rose, geranium. It's definitely very spicy. There's pronounced cardamom in here. You definitely get that oak mossy, woody base. But I think what sets this particular spicy floral woody chypre apart from others is the tonka vanilla leather combination in the base. Fendi was really well known for its leather products, especially their handbags. So of course their perfume is going to have a leather note in it. And that's what really makes the Fendi perfume unique. This perfume smells extremely expensive without ever feeling ostentatious or showy. It's beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna finish up what I have from the 80s with this little grouping, starting with Yop from 1987, another one of my signature scents. This is a very sweet and animalic, spicy, powdery floral. This has a bright aldehydic opening, and then it has that classic floral mid of jasmine, orange blossom, rose. But what makes this perfume different from others of the decade is the animalic and vanillic sweet and salty base. Then we have the gorgeous Lulu from Cacharel in 1987, created by Jean Guichard, the same person who created Poison. And I always refer to this one as like Cacharel's Poison, but it wasn't like a dupe of Poison. There were other companies back then that were doing dupes. There was this brand called Designer Imposters, and they used to make these body mist dupes of all of the popular perfumes. Like they did a Giorgio dupe that was called Primo. They did a Ralph Lauren dupe that was called Lindsay. The Gloria Vanderbilt dupe was, let me think if I can remember. I can't. Let me look it up. Hold, please. Ah, yes, it was called Fairchild. The Obsession dupe was called Confess. Okay, this is hilarious. And the Halston dupe was called Hampton. You could find these everywhere. But anyway, all of this to say Lulu is not a dupe of Poison, but there are definitely some similarities between Lulu and Poison. Lulu has that same plummy, spicy, creamy aspect to it that you get in Poison. I think that there's a lot of tuberose that stands out in Lulu. It's big and loud and bombastic, and it's amazing. Cacharel has always been a brand that creates amazing scents by master perfumers at a really reasonable price in the coolest bottles. Like all of their bottles are so well designed and unique. Big Cacharel fan. So right now I just have a little mini of Lulu, but I feel like I should get myself a bigger bottle. Then from 1989, we have the gorgeous Safari from Ralph Lauren. This is such a special perfume. This is green and grassy and hay-like. There is marigold and narcissus and orris. It has a ton of vetiver and moss in the base. I always say that this perfume smells just like sunset over the Serengeti. You can definitely imagine those tall, dry grasses just swaying in a hot breeze with like an ombre sunset all around you. This is a Dominique Ropion creation. This is a perfume that I would consider to be a masterpiece. And then finally from 1989, an oddball in the bunch. This is Violetta di Bosco from Spezieri Palazzo Vecchio. It's a little tiny apothecary style perfumery in Florence, Italy. And this perfume basically smells like Parma violet candy. When I took the cap off to sniff it recently, I was surprised at how much it also smells to me like L'Oreal Color Riche lipstick. And that is a scent I have been chasing in perfume form, but it's been right here under my own nose all the while. So this is Violetta di Bosco from Spezieri Palazzo Vecchio. Okay, so starting with Trésor from 1990. This has been my mom's signature scent since it came out in 1990. This is the Sophia Groisman creation that brought the Groisman Accord front and center for both perfumers and perfume enthusiasts alike. So the Groisman Accord is made up of 4 materials. You've got isoe super, hedione, methyl-ionone, and galaxolide. Each of those ingredients come together to create something that feels like what people describe as like a soft hug. Some people even call it the Huggy Accord. So isoe super is sort of like a synthetic woody molecule. Hedione gives a floralcy. It sort of behaves like jasmine in a composition. Methyl-ionone gives a soft, almost like irisy violet kind of a quality to a composition. And then galaxolide is a sweet synthetic musk. So all of these ingredients come together to create this accord that feels like soft and cozy and huggy, and it's very likable, it's very friendly. So with Trésor, you have that huggy Groisman Accord with some additional vanilla, there's iris, there's some fruity blossoms in Trésor, and then a beautiful sandalwood in the base. It's very romantic, it's very pillowy, and it is a beautiful classic perfume. Now you're going to start to see an appearance of some more Jo Malone. First up, we have Lime, Basil, and Mandarin from 1991. And the thing about Jo Malone perfumes is that they smell exactly like what they are called. This does smell like lime, basil, and mandarin. It does have a little bit of a woody, sort of patchouli kind of a base. I actually think this makes a better home scent than a personal scent. So as I use up this bottle, it will probably be used more as a room spray than as a perfume. Next, we have the Grapefruit Cologne from Jo Malone. You can definitely pick up the grapefruit in this. I feel like this is way more aromatic. I looked up the notes and it said moss, pimento, rosemary, and peppermint. And I think that gives a pretty good idea of the blend of this and what the overall composition smells like. And that's the thing about the Jo Malone perfumes, is they're not super complex, but they do smell really good. Then we have the classic fresh green floral Pleasures from Estee Lauder. This came out in 1995 and the perfumer was Alberto Morillas. So what I get in this perfume is a lot of violet leaf. I get the peony and the jasmine and definitely that patchouli sandalwood base. This does smell like a classic 90s woody floral. And from 1996, we have Confetto from Perfume Aroma. I didn't get this perfume until way, way later. In fact, I had never even heard of Perfume Aroma until the 2020s. This perfume is meant to smell like confetti, which are the hard-coated sugared almonds that are traditional wedding favors in Italian culture. The sweetness from the sugary vanilla coating is meant to represent the sweetness of the married life. And then the bitter almond and the aniseed is meant to represent the tough times that a couple will go through. So that's the symbolism behind Confetto. This perfume is very nostalgic for me. When my grandparents or my parents would come home from a family wedding, they would bring home a little bag of sugared almonds and a slice of wedding cake wrapped in a napkin for me. As I was putting this little grouping on the tray, I was like, well, if this doesn't represent my entire collection, I don't know what does. You have a classic designer perfume, a sort of pricey niche perfume, a super affordable gem, and a vintage. And that's pretty much my whole collection and my taste as a perfume enthusiast in a nutshell. I have like a little bit of everything. Okay, so starting with Kenzo Jungle from 1996. This is another Dominique Ropillon creation. This is the biggest trumpeting, spicy, ambery, woody, sort of gourmand perfume. This is a lot like an elephant. It thunders its way into a room. It is cardamom and clove. There is some licorice in here. There's mango. There's ylang ylang, gardenia. It does have a little bit of that tropical humidness to it. And then there's a cumin note in here that definitely gives like an animalic, elephant-like quality. This is a pretty polarizing perfume. I feel like it's one of those perfumes that I hear people either love it or they hate it. I happen to love it. And as you can see by the dent, you only need a little teeny tiny bit at a time because this perfume is humongous. Okay, then we have Suavissima from Perfume Aroma. This came out in 1996. This smells like an overpriced Nivea lotion. This is overpriced Nivea perfume. This smells exactly like Nivea lotion. It's soapy, lotiony, clean, but it is beautiful. When this runs out, I will just try to find myself either a bottle of the Nivea perfume or the Merchant of Venice My Pearls on a discounter site because they all smell the same. Okay, then we have Hot from Benetton, which I love. This came out in 1997. It smells exactly like Chanel's Allure. It's not a dupe of Allure, but there are definite similarities between them. This is a perfume that's like equal parts fresh sweet citrus, creamy rosy woods, stone fruits, and soft florals. It's soft and warm and a little bit sweet. It is fabulous, and I think this was like $9. And finally, this is my vintage bottle of Lei or Elle or She by Emporio Armani. This came out in 1998, and I really do not remember why I added this perfume to my collection back then. So this is a powdery woody floral, but it has a lime note up top that gives it a little bit of sourness or tartness or tanginess. So if it weren't for that lime note, this would just be kind of like, I hate using the word generic, but kind of like a generic powdery woody floral, but the lime note just adds a little bit of something extra to it that makes it interesting and good. And we will finish up what I currently have from the 1990s in my collection with Noah from Cacharel. This came out in 1998 and the perfumer is Olivier Cresp. I just wore this the other day. This perfume is awesome. So this is one of those like lotiony, creamy, fresh, clean, powdery florals. But in this perfume, in the base, you're gonna throw in a little bit of coffee. And that's what makes this perfume stand out. There's just a little teeny tiny hint of bitter coffee in this underneath it all that makes it stand out really cool, and leave it to Cacharel to do something like that. Love it. So then we have Le Chasse aux Papillons from L'Artisan Parfumeur, 1999, perfumer Anne Filippo. This is the Butterfly Chase. This is all about fluffy, springy white florals. Jasmine, linden blossom, tuberose, orange blossom, lemon blossom. There are no woody notes. There are no musky notes in the base of this. The base notes are actually listed as tuberose and ylang ylang. So this really is just a lovely, fresh green, cloud-like, fluffy floral. And finally, my favorite perfume in the entire Aqua Allegoria line. This is Guerlain's Pamplemousse. This is the most wonderful grapefruit scent. You get that tart zinginess of grapefruit with some neroli and petitgreen that gives it like a very green rind-like quality. But then there's vanilla in this, and that sort of sweetens it up, kind of like if you've ever sprinkled sugar on top of a wedge of grapefruit for breakfast. That's sort of what this perfume smells like. It's so fabulous and wonderful in the summer. It's fresh, but it's also lasting. Okay, so that wraps up all of the bottles in my perfume collection from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to go do some laundry. I'm going to go have some lunch. And then I will come back and see how long it takes me to get through all of the rest of my bottles from 2000 till today. So thank you so much for watching, for spending your time here with me, and for chatting perfumes with me in the comments. I hope you have fun peeking into my collection, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.